remain the ultimate in mass communication. It's very interesting. In the last couple of weeks, when it got down to the wire with the two political parties, what did they do? They went back into TV in a big way, like you wouldn't believe. And of course, you know that the double-digit growth is advertising went down last year, just on 7%, but it is booming back in a big way. And the first thing people did was they went back to what they knew, which was television. A Pack to the Rafters program the Tuesday before the election, eight ads just for the Labor interests in just that. They couldn't get it in big enough, and in fact it'll be the biggest spending campaign in history. And they went back to television. The media that can truly deliver those audiences, MasterChef for instance, phenomenon of that, 5.5 million viewers this year, are going to be able to continue to charge large premiums, and they'll do that. But smaller, specialised, highly engaged audiences are valuable too. If you've got 50 Mercedes to spend, to sell, and you've got just one particular one, you've got a very smart, select audience, and that's all that you want for it, that's where it'll be so valuable. New metrics of engagement to be developed so that audiences can be sold to marketers. Big is definitely beautiful, but small is already becoming very, very attractive as well. And of course, in a town like this, it makes an amazing change, because we now know that I grew up at a time when radio was just a golden era, and one of the greatest radio producers and creators, Street Remley. He said, I'm going to live in Adelaide, and that's going to be the centre of it. And of course, that's where it was. And so it means that cities like Adelaide can be just incredible and marvellous because of this new digital age, and you can do anything. I run this, the biggest ad business in the country. I live in a little country town, just outside Melbourne. 400 people live there. I'm not moving, not going anywhere. A lot of people say that about me, but in fact it's true. In fact, I built it out of your marvellous, in fact I was touring the great in Gilbertson, your marvellous Mount Gambier stone, nearly 40 years ago, because I went to Mount Gambier and I thought I like this stone, and I got Alan Scott and these big trucks to send it over there. Haven't moved. I'm a pretty regular guy in lots of ways, in that I've lived in the same house for 40 years with the same wife. Didn't know you're allowed to leave either. Another very important dimension, Jane keeps writing notes, no, good to go. Another very important dimension of communication is just that media is social and interactive, and you've seen that, you know it well. Increasingly advertisers are going to see the need and the opportunity to engage in conversations with their consumers, whereas before I said it was all one way, not anymore, and use this as a significant new tool in the business of supporting and building their brands. What does government have to do? The incumbent governments, right now, and caretaker one, rightly place the internet at the centre of its media policies. The opposition, of course, argued the other way. I'll be writing a bit more later this week about that. The announcement and swift rollout of the NBN in Tasmania shows that they understood how crucial this infrastructure is to our future. There are only a couple of things I would say to our governments. One, commit to complete the NBN network and retain government control of it. After all, it is really, they are the roads, the railways and the original telephone company, and that's what had to happen in the beginning. Happened here, happened in Europe, happened in North America, and so it should here, because the NBN, the broadband, is in fact the railroad and the highways of the future. And for a time, we need to make sure that they're properly, in a big country like this, that they're properly developed. Like a bridge or a highway, it's a natural monopoly, and there are many potential problems with government monopolies, but we are in this state because of a private one, as we know. Let's not repeat that mistake. Secondly, the government needs to rethink the anti-siphoning legislation that currently keeps some 1,300 sporting events almost exclusively in the hands of free-to-air networks. Seems a funny little thing about sport, but you just think of the free-to-air programs, top 30 last year, 14 of them were sports. And of the Foxtel programs, of the top 30, all 30 were sports. That's the sort of country that we are, and of course there is a control over that which now limits just what happens. The anti-siphoning list is preventing free and fair competition between media outlets and degrading the viewing experience for sports fans. We simply don't need to protect any more than a handful of highly significant sports to ensure that voters are given free access to them. So what might the new media consumption landscape look like? We're all well aware that consumption of traditional media is falling, while consumption of new media is increasing. The key question is, are we on a slope where traditional media loses its dominance altogether, or are we reaching a point of balance? And I argue we're reaching a point of balance. Looking at the Morgan time spent with media statistics over the last 4 years, we see that the rate of decline for television, though slightly in newer years, is still there, but only 0.4%. Went up a little bit in 2009, however still a very slow rate of decline. from a very high point. Newspapers, it went from 0.01% in 06 to a little bit more this year, so it's gone a bit quicker. Similar story for magazines. So the rate of increase in the time spent on the net, nevertheless, has been increasing, 11% year on year. So our main media, it's not totally collapsing, despite what I put up there. It's still with us in a big way. Indicates to me that television audiences will continue to decline, only slightly, from the very high base for the near future. There's certainly nothing for the networks to be concerned about, because advertisers still have no real substitute for the power of TV communication, as I just outlined in the race to last Saturday. They all went back to it in a big way. More and more, what we're seeing is that online becomes a great complement to television rather than a substitute. The ad spend figures indicate there's still no lack of demand for the medium, which is still the most effective tool we have to deliver messages to large audiences. Fast, insight, sound and motion in a relaxed frame of mind. It's television. In the USA, where the audience of the main networks are around 2/3 of ours, television still commands the same share of the advertising cake as in Australia. Our television, free-to-air television here, is in much better shape than almost any other country in the world. By the same token, while newspaper circulations and readership have fallen, consumption of news content is not. The 5 most popular news sites in Australia are the sites of the Sydney Morning Herald, 9MSN, the Nine Network, The Age and the ABC. The average visitor to the Sydney Morning Herald site spends 45 minutes a month on the site, and for Google News, you think the latest and best of everything, the figure is only 8 minutes. Mobile and iPad editions of traditional media are the next frontier. It's very early days for the iPad, although 1 million have been sold. Some US publishers have rushed into the device with so far modest results. But The Age, the Sydney Morning Herald, the Australian and the Fin Review all have iPad apps on the way, and the Australian says it's already sold out of its advertising inventory for the period ahead. I read all the papers this morning about 5:30 in a little country town in Victoria, just on the iPad, just dial them all up, that's where it is. A conclusion to your marketing day of prizes. TV shows and quality news are going to remain the dominant voices that shape the national conversation. So don't think all the people in the internet businesses, and I've got a lot of very big ones, they all think they're rock stars, and I think this is they're new and it's all been done before, but the good old-fashioned world is still there. It's just changing the shape of how it is. And despite the stories about the death of traditional media, can still deliver mass audience and capture the imagination of the nation. These marketing levers are prized by marketers and will continue to command a premium. The extraordinary rating achievers of MasterChef, as I said, are a testament to the capability of the big media. With improved broadband infrastructure, traditional media will continue to expand across the digital space. It'll still be old media, television, newspapers that sets the agenda and deliver mass audiences to advertisers, and they'll be even more valued for this, even though they might be smaller than in the big old days of the past. So it's now up to broadcasters and publishers to work at providing extra value for consumers in the digital space, and they'll do it. They're clever people. We've got great media companies in this country where our population is well served. Traditional media has got out of the newspaper TV box and shouldn't look back, and so we've got a good period ahead of us. I can say finally, Australia is an incredible place. We are in the 6-hour time band, which is Asia. It is the growth economy of the world. It will be within, it is already our biggest trading partner, of course, in China, and we now know that it's just going to move to this part. And for people in this room here, it will be so important, because there was a time when Asia was just about commodities, and we dig it up and we give it to them. And right now, the next generation of people in Asia are middle-class citizens who want branded products and services. And that's the industry the people in this room are. So we are an incredibly powerful and good space. Someone said to me the other day about the business we've got, do I plan to retire? No, I've got to tell you that by another 30 years, it'll be the best time in the world to be here. I went on to say, because somebody would know I used to be 70 kilos heavier than I am now. So I said to the journo, I said, no, I know what's in your mind. Do I plan to retire or die? No, I'm not going to do either. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, here's the gift for being such a wonderful guest speaker and also for being so gracious with your time. I just would like to correct one thing. Adelaide doesn't get Melbourne's weather 2 days before, you get Adelaide's weather 2 days later. Harold has time for 2 questions from the floor, so I'm sure that some of our budding marketers out there would love to ask the guru of marketing here some questions about what... One from a lady. We can't see his... Have a lady? Well, I've got a question. What was that? we got one at the back? They're very shy. Hello, if you can just give us your name as you ask the question.
Hi, Mal Chair, Adelaide Uni. Just a quick question, Harold. How will advertising actually adapt to the new media landscape and actually evolve from being about disruption to interruption?
Oh, I think you'll find that it has already, because you look back and you say, hasn't that changed? So it isn't as dramatically, it happened overnight, but we already know. If you look at MasterChef, my little 4-year-old granddaughter the other day said her mum needed some thickening or some product for a food, for whatever she was making. My little granddaughter immediately rolled out the product that gave the name of it, and for now it's in her mind forever that it's the branded product. So how does it all evolve? It becomes very cleverly part of it. What comes around goes around, I might say, because long time ago when radio was there were a thing called soap operas. What were soap operas? They were radio programs sponsored by soap companies in America. That's why they're called soapies. And in fact, it involved products into the programs, and so that was a big part of it. And that's what's happening again now. Now, the ad will always work, it will always be there. It maybe isn't the great big idea that it once was, that was so powerful in the 70s and 80s, but it'll be a big part of it. But it is already evolving. Clever young people, like we were once a media buying company, one company. We've now got 21 businesses which cover everything all the way along. Fellas came to us and had a little plan for his ANZ tellers who the people had sold to go and stand outside the NAB branches just to drive them all mad. That's a new form of just getting involved in whatever way it was. Probably was done 100 years ago with sandwich boards, so a whole lot of things are just adapting to the new world. So I think a lot of clever young people in Australia are finding ways to do it. So forgive me for making you second. There you go.
Hi Harold, I'm no lady, but I have a question. As on Saturday morning, I normally vote one way or the other, but being in the marketing media industry, the NBN issue came up as one I had to think about. The Labor government will say the NBN is big for the media and marketing industry, but the coalition will argue 43 billion is potentially a massive white elephant. With technology changing so fast, it'd be redundant in X amount of time. What's your view on NBN versus the coalition's plan?
Sure. Well, I've been public about this and happy to do it again. We'll go to the way to do it. The broadband is absolutely essential to this country, or I tell you, we'll be living in the dark ages, because what the broadband does is it makes our kids, their kids, us to some extent, competitive with the rest of the world. We are now 14th or 15th. New Zealand is ahead of us. South Korea is up there ahead of all of us, and what it is, it's not just the speed of how quickly you can dial something. By the way, in the city we're pretty much okay, but consider Australia, which is this vast continent the size of the United States with 22 million people all spread around. What we've got is this great big size we're going to make work, and the broadband is the best thing in the world to bring us up to the modern world. And one party says, well, we'll do that, and there's a bit of an argument. By the way, I think it's lunch money, 43 billion in the size of what we've got to do over 10 years. It's a crazy, silly argument. And so that's the first thing. It is unbelievably essential that we do it, and it will take us back 20 years if we follow what the coalition wanted to happen. And I told them, and I go to the footy with a mate of mine, local Tony Smith, and he's the shadow coalition on all of this. And I tell him that this is terrible. This will set the country back 25 years if we do that. It is just so stupid. And the fact that it became an argument is good, because it means that people like me, the world I live in, says that that's what it is. And I'll tell them all over again, because this is just the greatest place on earth to be, and to find some dumb party trying to take us back like that is really stupid. Did I make the point?